Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor P. Bhaskar Reddy, Sri Venkateswara University, Tirupati. In the present module of the paper, Outlines of Indian History, you are going to learn one important topic in Indian history, that is the Muslim invasions on India. You know that the Muslim invasions which started in 7th century in the northwestern provinces, it marks a new beginning in history and culture of India. This lesson is designed with 3 topics which covers the Arab conquest of Sindh, which took place in 7th and 8th centuries, then followed the topic Muhammad Ghazni, his invasions and its impact, then followed by the Ghori invasions, and finally establishment of the, which have a connection from 6th century to 13th century, a long span of 6 centuries. The learning objectives of this module are the political and cultural condition of India in the 7th century Christian era, the history of the Arabs and foundation of Islam, the causes for the Arabs' conquest of Sindh, Arab invasion on Sindh and its impact, the Ghaznavid Turks, the invasions of the Muhammad Ghazni and his place in Indian history, the invasions of Muhammad Ghori, and final establishment of Turkish rule in India. With these objectives, let us start our discussion on the political and cultural conditions of India in early medieval age, particularly after the death of Harsha. It was on the threshold of phenomenal changes in the domain of polity, economy, society and culture in early medieval age. Politically, there were many powerful Hindu kingdoms in Indian subcontinent which constantly fought against each other for fame and extension of territories. Many of them were quite extensive and powerful, but because of their internal conflicts, none of them could utilize their complete resources, nor do they unite themselves. During this period, Afghanistan was ruled over by 2 Hindu kingdoms of Jabul and Kabul. At the same period and juncture, a new power was born on the Arabian soil, professing a different faith, Islam, which it entered India as a political power in the 8th century AD. With this background of Indian political and cultural history, let us know about who are the Arabs and how they started the Islam and how they mobilized the political powers in the Central Asia. It is known that Prophet Muhammad of Arabia was the founder of Islam. He born in 570 Christian era at Mecca in Arabia and passed away in 632. He propagated the Islam both by peace and war. Particularly in politics, all Muslims formed one congregation of the people. Then Islam inspired a warlike spirit and national consciousness. Then Arabs decided to spread their new religion and carry on military conquest all over the world. Within a century, the Arabs established a vast empire which extended from Atlantic Sea in the west to the banks of the river Indus in the east, from the Caspian Sea in the north to the valley of the river Nile in the south. Then the successors of Muhammad were called Khalifa, known as caliphs. The first Khalifa was Muhammad's father-in-law, Abu Bakr. He became the civic head of the Islam, and in course of time, he came to be regarded as the deputy of Allah on the earth, where he invested with the spiritual and temporal powers. Umar was the second Khalifa. During his time, he shifted the headquarters of the Khalifa to the famous city Damascus. Later, the Arabs built a new capital, Baghdad, and started the conquest of the world. It is known that during the time of Omar, the Arabs thought of conquering the Sindh province of North Indian subcontinent. With this background of Arabs and foundation of them and their political mobilization, what were the causes for the Arab conquest of Sindh? It is also necessary to understand. Historians attributed several causes for the Arab conquest of Sindh. The first one is to spread Islam. The propagation of Islam by force had been the aim of all the caliphs who are the spiritual heads of the Islam. And like all powerful rulers, they also have a desire to extend their empire and attack and Sindh, which was also a part of expansionist policy. Besides that, the fabulous wealth of India, it is an additional attraction for the conquest of Arabs. Besides the above, the last one is, but not the least, to check the piratal activities and to safeguard the commercial interests is also one of the important cause for the Arab conquest of the Sindh. With these aims and objectives, the Arabs started their invasions on India in the beginnings of 7th century Christian era. The first attack of the Arabs on Indian territories took place in 636 Christian era during the time of Caliphate Omar. కొద్దిగా మళ్ళా ఒకసారి రిపీట్ చేస్తాం మొదటి నుంచి. With these causes and aims, the Arabs who already stabilized their power in the Central Arabian provinces, then they started the conquest on Sindh province of India. The first attack of the Arabs on Indian territories took place in 636. During the Caliphate of Omar, a naval expedition was sent to Indian provinces, particularly to capture Thane near Bombay. This attempt ended as a failure because Pulakesin II, the most powerful king of the Chalukyan king, drove away the Arabs' attack. Once again, Omar took second expedition. It was in 644 Christian era through Makran coast into western Sindh. In this connection also, the Pratikara king Nagabhatta I foiled the attempts of the Arabs. Thus, in the initial stages, the Arabs who tried to occupy the provinces of the Indian coast through sea and land, they received a setback because at that time the Chalukyas and Pratikaras were powerful in India. Once again, the Arabs started their inroads to enter into the Indian provinces in the beginnings of 8th century. In the year 711, an expedition was sent by Hajjaj, the Muslim governor of Iraq. Historians have expressed a different opinion regarding the incident. The most important cause for his invasion is the ruler of Iraq demanded the Raja of Sindh to punish the pirates when the king refused to yield to the demand. Particularly, Muhammad Qasim, the son-in-law of the governor of Iraq, came with a large army. This invasion and conquest of the Sindh was supported by the Khalifa also. Qasim, with a powerful army, successfully attacked and occupied Debal, an important port in the kingdom of Dahir. Then he defeated the army of Dahir in the battles fought at Brahmanabad and Alor. He also conquered Nerun, Sivistan and few other strongholds. He reached Multan and besieged the fort in the year 713. Muhammad Qasim could not live long after his successful campaigns. He met a tragic and miserable death because of the shrewd manipulation of Raja Dahir's daughter Surya Devi. The new Caliph Suleiman ordered the execution of Qasim. Thus, the Qasim was successful in his attempts in making their inroads into the Indian province, where he successfully defeated the Dahir. It is necessary to analyze what are the causes for the success of Arabs, those who failed in the beginning stages. The internal weakness of the Sindh region was the responsible for its fall. Geographically, Sindh was isolated from the rest of India, and consequently, no ruler of North India took any interest in the Sindh. Besides, the salinity and lack of fertility of the soil hampered the economic stability of the ruler of Sindh. Hence, they could not maintain a strong army to meet the challenges forced by the Arabs. The lack of foresight and popularity of the king, Dahir, was also responsible for his defeat. Further, the superior commandership of Muhammad Qasim, the religious zeal of the Arabs, and their better arms and military tactics were certainly responsible for their success. After the death of Qasim, the Arabs continued their further invasions. Now we may proceed. What was the further progress of Arab conquest on Sindh after the death of Qasim? The Arabs failed to penetrate further into India. The Arab thirst for further conquest was put an end by the efforts of the Chalukyas and Rashtrakutas in western India and Gurjara Pratiharas in northern India. After that, in the year 750, the Arabs who monopolized their political power in Central Asia and also Sindh, they lost their political power and replaced Umayyads as caliphs. It led to the conflicts among the two royal families and also Arab officers in the Sindh. The Arabs no doubt conquered the Sindh, but they could not enjoy their control over that region for a long time. About the conquest of Sindh, Stanley Lane Pule, he observes that the Arabs had conquered Sindh, but the conquest was only an episode in the history of India and Islam and Trump without any results. Thus, the Arabs successfully led their campaigns and occupied the Sindh province of Indian subcontinent. Politically, they were success. What was the impact of the Arab conquest on Indian culture? It is also an important aspect to know. Regarding its impact, politically this was not a great event and yet it left an impact on the Arab culture. The Arab conquest of Sindh did not lead to the establishment of close cultural relations between Arabs and the rest of India. The Arab culture got enriched by the Hindu culture and civilization. The Arab settlements in the Sindh and Multan made Islam a part and parcel of the Indian religious life. Regarding its impact on literature and sciences, Indian mathematics and works on astronomy were translated into Arabic. Aryabhata's Surya Siddhanta is one of such translated works into Arabic. A large number of Arab traders settled outside the Muslim occupied territories on the coastal region from Sindh to Gujarat and Kathiawar. Indian traders and merchants continued to explore the markets of Iraq and Iran. The Arabs employed Indian architects and adopted Indian architectural concepts while constructing their residences, public buildings, and magnificent mosques. On the whole, the relations were neither very hostile nor very cordial between Arabs and the Indians. In this regard, R.C. Madunzar, one of the prominent historian, he states that the Arabs acquired from the Hindus some new knowledge in Indian religion, philosophy, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and folklore, and carried out not only to their own land but also Europe. Thus, the Arabs who started their inroads into Indian subcontinent in the 7th century, they created a new mark in the political and also cultural aspects of Asia. With this, now we may proceed to another topic, the Ghaznavid Turks. Who are the Ghaznis? Where they ruled over, their background, and when they started the invasions on India, what is the greatness of Muhammad Ghazni and his place in Indian history. After the Arab penetration to Sindh, it was the Turks who once again made inroads into India in 11th century. By the end of 9th century, the Abbasid Caliphate declined and followed by Samanid dynasty. The leadership of Islam was also captured from the Arabs, first by the Persians and then by the Turks. The Turkish governors established independent kingdoms. The Khalifa, who was a head of both political and spiritual, now he became only a ritual authority. Ghaznavid dynasty was founded by Alpizin in 963, a Turkish slave of Samanid king. In the beginning stages, he occupied the kingdom of Jabul with its capital Ghazni. This was the beginning of Ghaznavid Turks and their political power. Subektigin, as a capable and a ambitious ruler, he succeeded in capturing all the territories which lay between Lamgan and Peshawar from the Hindustani ruler Jaipala. The Hindu Shahi kingdom failed to check the growing power of the Ghaznavids. Subektigin was followed by his sons Ismail, and later that Ismail was overthrown by Mahmud in the year 998. He became the famous personality in Indian history as Muhammad Ghazni. Now, we may proceed to discuss the career, achievements and greatness of Muhammad Ghazni, one of the greatest ruler of the Ghaznavid Turks. He established a huge empire in Central Asia with the capital at Ghazni. In the initial stages, first consolidated his position in Herat, Balkh, Bast and Khorasan regions. The Khalifa Al-Qadir Billah accepted him as the ruler and confirmed the titles of Yamin ud Dawla and Amin ud Millah. It is said that on the occasion of his investiture by the Khalifa, Ghazni took a vow to organize every year a ride into India. Muhammad Ghazni, with this vow, he justified his action and became a powerful ruler who repeatedly attacked on India. Now we may proceed to discuss the Muhammad Ghazni invasions and how he was successful. Before that, let to know about in brief the political condition of India in the 10th century when Muhammad Ghazni invaded on the Indian territories. During that time, North India was divided into a number of independent states. There was 2 Arab kingdoms in the Sindh province, one at Multan and other at Mansura. On the frontier of India existed the Hindu Shahi kingdom and its capital was Vaihind. Kashmir was an independent state ruled over by the Lohara dynasty. Kannauj, the famous province of the north, was ruled over by Rajapala, the Gujara Pratihara king. There were several independent kingdoms in Bengal, that is Pala dynasty, Gujarat, Solanki dynasty, Malwa, Paramara dynasty, and in Bundelkhand, Chandila dynasty were also some of the ruling powers. In the south, the later Chalukyas and Cholas have their powerful kingdoms. Under these circumstances, Muhammad Ghazni started taking advantage of this political atmosphere that prevailed in India, where he was successful in his attempts. Now we may proceed the series of Muhammad Ghazni invasions on India. According to Sir Henry Elliot, Muhammad made 17 expeditions against India between the year 1000 to 1027. In these 27 years, where he made 17 raids, it is thought that Muhammad's invasion of India was purely religious, economic, but not political. The first invasion of Muhammad Ghazni took place in year 1000, where he captured the frontier forts in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Later, in the year 1004, he attacked on Bhatia, defeated its ruler Baji Rai and plundered vast territories. In the year 1006, attacked on Shia kingdom of Multan, imprisoned its ruler Fath Dawood. Muhammad appointed Shukpala, known as Nawaz Shah, the grandson of Jayapala, as its governor and made him to embrace Islam. Thus, he was successful not only to invade on the Indian provinces, and even he tried to convert the Hindu rulers into Islam. Dawood and Nawaz Shah in later course of time revolted in his absence. For that reason, once again in the 1007, he defeated and killed Nawaz Shah and annexed the territories including the Multan region. The next edition is in the year 1009, where it was against Anandapala for having helped Fath Dawood. The Hindu conference organized by Anandapala was utterly defeated by Muhammad in the Battle of Vaihind. Vaihind is an important battle which fought between the combined forces of the Hindu rulers and Muhammad Ghazni. In that also he was very successful. The subsequent expeditions were against Narayanpur, Nagarkot, and he plundered its wealth. In the 11th expedition, which took place in the year 1013, Nandana was annexed. In the year 1014, he attacked on Taneswar, defeated the king Rama, the chief of Dera dynasty, and destroyed the Chakraswami temple. Later in the year 1018, Muhammad plundered the holy city of Madura and also attacked on Kanauj. The ruler Rajapala abandoned Kanauj and later died. Muhammad, after these successful campaigns, returned via Kalinjar with fabulous riches which was looted from all these invasions. Once again, in the year 1019 and 1029, he undertook 2 invasions on Gangetic Valley. One more important invasion of his time is his invasion on Somanath temple, the prominent Hindu temple located in the Kathiawar region of Gujarat. In the year 1025, he attacked on Somanath temple, the holy town on the coast of Kathiawar. It was a beautiful temple and possessed enormous wealth. At the time when he started his raiding, the Hindus fought very bravely. The battle continued 3 days. However, after 3 days of fights, Muhammad Ghazni troops were successful in plundering the Somanath temple, and he looted much of treasure, and even the idol of Somanatha destructed. Thus, this was also successful on part of the Muhammad Ghazni, and he looted much property. Once again, he came back to India lastly in 1027 to punish the Jats who had troubled him on his return journey from Somanath. The Jats were severely punished, once again looted their property, enslaved their women and children. Thus, in these 17 invasions, Muhammad Ghazni is successful in all his invasions and occupied several territories, not only in Sindh and also several North Indian territories. Muhammad Ghazni not only successful, but he created his own mark in the Indian history, where he is considered as most personality in the Asian territories. He was a courageous soldier and successful commander with multi-personality. He carved out one of the biggest empires in West and Central Asia. Particularly the Ghaznavid Empire included Persia, Transoxiana, Afghanistan and Punjab region of North Province. His conquest of Punjab and Multan completely changed the political situation in India. This paved the way for the Turks and Afghans for further conquest in the later course of time. During his invasions, particularly he drained the resources of India by his repeated raids on temples and also forts. looting of holy places, particularly in Taneswar, Madura, and the loss of thousands of people defending Somanatha temple and the destruction of Linga made him as a fanatic Muslim. However, it is difficult to explain the motive behind the unwanted destructions. He was greatly honored by the Khalifa for his successful feats in India, and he was considered as a hero of Islam by the medieval historians. Whatever the background it may be, there was a great loss to the Indian territories, and his motive is looting of prosperity. Besides that, he was a great patron of art and literature. Firdausi, one of the great poet laureate and author of Shahnama, was his court. Al-Biruni also stayed in his court and wrote the famous Kitab-i-Hind, an account of India. Muhammad also contributed for the progress of literary activity, where he established a university, a library, and a museum at his capital, Ghazni. He adorned the Ghazni with fine buildings and mosques. During his rule, Ghazni not only became a beautiful city of East, but also the center of Islamic scholarship, fine arts, and culture. Thus, Muhammad Ghazni was successful both in political as well as cultural aspects of India as well as Asian history. He was successful in all his invasions and occupies an important place in the Indian history also. With this, now we may proceed to another phase of invasions, that is the Muhammad Ghori and his invasions and its impact. Muhammad Ghori was the next important Muslim ruler. It is known that towards the close of 12th century, another Turkish tribe rose to prominence in the northwest of Afghanistan and established Ghurid kingdom. Taking advantage of the weakness of the Muhammad Ghazni's successors, Alauddin Hussein of Ghor destroyed their power. Ghor was a Central Asian principality, lay in between Ghazni and Herat. In the year 1163, Ghiyazuddin became the ruler of Ghor. He sent his brother Sahabuddin to conquer Ghazni. He was successfully conquered Ghazni in the year 1173 and appointed as its governor. This Sahabuddin is well known in the history of India as Muhammad Ghori. With this brief discussion on the Ghoris, now we may proceed. What are the causes for Muhammad Ghori's invasions on India? Muhammad Ghori was an ambitious and greedy, aggressive ruler. Like all great rulers of the age, he wanted to expand his empire for power and glory. The royal families of Ghur and Ghazni basically were hereditary enemies, and by that time, the Ghaznavids are still ruling in the Punjab, only the reminiscence still continuing. Because of that, Ghori wanted to recover Sindh and Punjab in India from the Ghaznavid Turks. He also desired to acquire wealth from India and to extend the sway of Islam. With this background of Ghori dynasty, we may proceed to know the political situation of India on the eve of Muhammad Ghori's invasions, particularly in the 12th century AD. To understand the total comprehensive picture of Indian history and how he was successful in further attempts of his invasions and how this paved the way for the establishment of Turkish rule in India. Regarding the political condition of India in 12th century at the time of Ghori's invasion, nearly 100 years had lapsed after the last invasion of Muhammad in 1027. Unfortunately, Indians did not learn any useful political lesson from the Ghazni raids. They failed to develop a foresight necessary to meet the new challenge. There was not a single remarkable change in the condition of India except changes in ruling dynasties and territories. Politically, India was divided into many kingdoms both in the north and south regions. Particularly the North India witnessed the rule of many Rajput princes. The prominent among them were Prithviraj Chauhan, who was ruling over Delhi and Ajmer; Jayachandra, the ruler of Kannauj; Solanki king Mola Raja was the ruler over Gujarat; Lakshmana Sena was the Sena king ruling over Bengal. Though they were very powerful in their provinces, but they indulged in constant internecine activities which ultimately weakened their strength, and also they suffered a lot. Under these circumstances, Muhammad Ghori, who established his stability and power under his brother, now he started his invasions on India. Ghori's first invasion were on Multan and fortress of Uch with a view to bring back the Muslim states of India. He conquered it very easily in the year 1175. In the year 1178, he attacked on Anhilwara in Gujarat, but was defeated by its king Mola Raja II. Soon, Muhammad realized that the right way to enter Hindustan was through Punjab. With that plan, Muhammad conquered Peshawar in the year 1179 and Sialkot in 1185. Finally, he marched against Lahore, defeated its ruler Khusro Shah. Thus, he conquered once again the Sindh and Punjab and ultimately ended the Ghazni Empire in the beginning stages. Later on, he started his invasions further to occupy the Indian territories. In that, the first important battle which occurred between Muhammad Ghori and the Indian rulers, the Battle of Tarain, and also known as Taneswar, which occurred in 1191. Muhammad attacked and captured Bathinda, a part of Prithviraj's dominion. This was a beginning which led a clash between Muhammad Ghori and Prithviraj, one of the most powerful Rajput rulers. These enemies met each other in the battlefield at Tarain, 80 miles from Delhi. This was known in the history of India as First Battle of Tarain. In that battle, Muhammad Ghori was defeated and also wounded in the arm. Thus, Muslim army was routed and the battle was completely won over by the Prithviraj Chauhan. This was a great success on part of the Indian rulers, particularly which it credited some name and fame to the Prithviraj. After the defeat of first Tarain battle, Muhammad Ghori also made preparations for further attack on the same ruler to take a revenge. Muhammad Ghori was not disheartened and prepared his army for the next attack to avenge his defeat with much strategy and power. Prithviraj also, to make a contract, organized a big Hindu confederacy to resist. In the year 1192, once again the both armies met again in the same battlefield, Tarain. This time, Muhammad Ghori defeated the leader of the confederacy, Prithviraj, and he killed. The second battle of Tarain is one of the turning points in the history of India. This battle opened the way for further conquest of India by the Muslims. The important cities Ajmer and Delhi were occupied by the Muhammad Ghori. After the Battle of Tarain, Muhammad Ghori appointed Qutbuddin Aibak, one of his slaves, as the viceroy of the Indian provinces or newly conquered provinces of India. Qutbuddin Aibak consolidated the Indian conquest of his master. During his time, Delhi became the capital for Qutbuddin Aibak in the year 1193. One more important battle which occurred between Muhammad Ghori and the Indian rulers is the Battle of Chandwar, which fought in the year 1194. Muhammad Ghori led another expedition against Jayachandra of Kannauj. The battle between Muhammad and Jayachandra took place near Chandwar on the river Yamuna between Etawah and Kannauj. King Jayachandra was suffered defeat in this battle and also killed. According to R.S. Sharma, regarding the results of this war, the fall of Jayachandra made Muhammad Ghor the master of political as well as religious capitals of Hindustan on both Kannauj and Benares. After this, there were several battles, several invasions that took place even after that. Muhammad rested the responsibility of consolidating the conquest in India on his governor Qutbuddin Aibak. Aibak, as a viceroy, extended the influence of Muhammad over many Rajput states of Gwalior, Ajmer, Anhilwara, Badaun, Benares, Bundelkhand and Kalinjar. Muhammad Bakhtiyar Khilji, one of the general of Ghori, also led a daring military expedition against Bihar and Bengal, where he was successful. In between 1202 and 5, he attacked on Odantapuri and plundered a Buddhist monastery, and in that invasion, he also destroyed the University of Nalanda and Vikramashira, the famous educational centers of Hindus in ancient India, and also defeated the Lakshmana Sena of Bengal. Muhammad Ghori, though he conquered India, but he did not declare himself as an independent king in this region, and he remained a loyal brother to his brother Ghiyazuddin, who was the ruler of Ghor. Later, he became the ruler of vast empire in the year 1202 after the death of his brother, and ruled West Asia as well as India until his assassination in the year 1206. Muhammad, during his kingship, came back to India in the year 1205 and fought a battles at Kokar. Muhammad, as a ruler of Ghori, once again came back to India in the year 1205 and fought a battle against the Kokars. He was successful in defeating the Kokars. But however, the Kokars' attempts and revenge against the Muhammad Ghori, it ends the life and death of Muhammad Ghori also. After defeating Kokars, Muhammad Ghori immediately rushed to back Ghazni, but he was not fated to reach his homeland. He was assassinated by the Kokars on the banks of the river Indus in the year 1206 while engaging his evening prayers. Thus, Muhammad Ghori, who was successful in his attempts, who further expanded his territories over a major portion of northern India, but met with a tragic end and he lost his life. Thus, a glorious personality lost his life miserably. With this, you have an idea and understood the invasions of the Muslims, which began in the middle of 7th century and continued nearly 500 and odd years. These 500 years, though there were different stages, there were different families, this period or these invasions considered as a new beginning for the further course of medieval history, which a new power rose to prominence in Indian history from 1206 onwards. Now, regarding the summary of these lessons are, Muhammad Ghazni opened the gate for Turkish conquest in India, but the task of consolidation was done by Muhammad Ghori. Muhammad was one of the most remarkable figure of medieval history. He was a man of vision. Almost all historians have praised him for his qualities of head and heart. Muhammad Ghori rose some smaller beginnings than Muhammad Ghazni, but he carried arms further and left undisputable footprints in India. His greatest achievement was the establishment of Turkish Empire in India, which added a fresh chapter to the Indian history. With his death, the Central Asian Empire was broken into pieces. Qutbuddin Aibak, one of the slaves of Muhammad Ghori, became the master of his Indian provinces and laid a foundation for a Delhi Sultanate in 1206. With this discussion, I hope that you may understood the Muslim invasions, from which period they started, the political condition of India in all periods, particularly the Arab invasions, when it took place, who are the responsible for their success and its impact. Then Ghazni, his 17 invasions, his victories, and also his place in history. Then followed by Ghori's and establishment of Turkish rule in India in the year 1206 AD. And you know that in the following period, or from 1206 onwards, India witnessed the establishment of slave dynasty, later followed by several dynasties up to the advent of Europeans. And you may learn these lessons in the coming lessons, and this may be the background to understand the establishment of Delhi Sultanate. Thank you.